you.
Right, let's get to our top story. The PM, Rishi Sunak, waded in over the weekend to say he too is appalled by the way the police treated a Jewish man during a pro-Palestinian demonstration in London at the weekend.
Well, Gideon Falter was told by an officer that his presence risked breaching the peace and used the phrase, "you're quite openly Jewish," when explaining his actions.
Here to discuss this story and other political ones, Times Radio presenter James Hansen, former Home Office advisor Claire Pearsall, and we'll start with former Met detective Peter Bleksley. Peter, good morning. Good morning, one and all.
Good morning.
The optics, again, for the Metropolitan Police. I mean, where do you start? Wayne Couzens. Where do you finish? Anti-Semitism. I mean, they're calling for Sir Mark Rowley to go. Now, Jewish leaders, it says, front page of the Mail, call on Met Chief to quit. Answer me a question. Who's in charge of the Met Police? Is it Sadiq Khan or is it the government?
Well, Sadiq Khan employed Sir Mark Rowley only 18 months ago. He played a huge part in that employment process, along with Dame Priti Patel when she was Home Secretary. So the likelihood of Khan, after such a short space of time, turning turtle and sacking Rowley, I think, are slim, although, of course, he did get rid of Cressida Dick, the previous commissioner, played a huge part.
And Rowley was her deputy, so it's a sort of continuity, right?
No. Rowley took a sojourn out of policing for about 4 or 5 years, having held a very senior role in the Met. Took time out, wrote a lamentable book, which Amber Rudd commented upon on the front cover, but that's another story. So much for independence of policing. And he worked in the tech industry and such like. So tempted back into the Met. They only had 2 candidates to choose from, Priti Patel and Sadiq Khan. Only 2 people applied for it. And so the question about should he go, I think begs the question, well, who's going to replace him? Because I'll tell you who would replace him. Another establishment sop. Floppy, flaky, wokey senior police, the like of which pollute the corridors of policing power, the length and breadth of the country. But if I may, I'll just give my view on what I think this interchange between the unstoppable force, which was the Jewish Mr. Falter, and the immovable object, which was the Met Police Sergeant. This actually gives a greater insight into these pro-Palestinian marches, I think. If you listen to what goes on in the background, the chanting and the such like, if you look at the criminality, the clear criminality, the swastikas, the chanting, the other charges that we've seen during these pro-Palestinian marches, and when you look at other independent observers who have been oppressed and arrested by the police, I think the argument has worn wafer thin now from the police that these protests should be facilitated.
Clumsy or premeditated, the policeman's, at that moment, policeman's response to that protester, the Jewish protester?
Remember, these frontline police officers are the mouthpieces of Mark Rowley and their cohorts. They get briefed before they go on these protests. They get told what to say and how to deal with them. The time has come now for Mark Rowley to grow a spine, go to the Home Secretary and say there is a risk, clear risk, of serious criminality on these marches and get them banned.
But what about the right to freedom of speech, Peter? What about the people who are protesting peacefully? The overwhelming majority of people at those marches will be protesting peacefully. And where will people go if they want to protest specifically the IDF's response to what happened, awful things that happened on October the 7th? Where do people go to protest that? Where do people go to protest what's happening to children in Gaza?
First and foremost, you can't ban a gathering, so let them have a gathering in Hyde Park. And secondly, if they're also overwhelmingly peaceful, then why can't Jewish people, why can't people holding signs saying Hamas are terrorists, why can't they walk along the route, walk in a contrary direction or cross if need be? They can't because that is a myth. There is so much bad blood out there.
But of course there are hundreds of Jewish protesters who have joined the march and support the march.
Yes, indeed. But there are others who haven't.
Yeah.
And there are independent people who want to go there either as observers or to express the contrary view that are fundamentally not being allowed to do that now because of a clear threat of serious criminality, and they are in danger. Time to ban them.
Claire Pearsall, thoughts?
I don't think you should ban the marches because I think that just pushes it out into the fringes. You lose more control. I think worse criminality will happen the minute you start pushing these people and saying you're not welcome on these streets, they'll just go somewhere else and cause even more of a problem. But what I do think is that Sir Mark Rowley does need to grow a spine. There needs to be consistency in policing, and that's what we haven't seen. There are an awful lot of chants, signs, gestures being made that are against the law. So why aren't they being dealt with? And when you see the police's action against eco-protesters having a nice chat whilst they're glued to a road, you kind of think, well, where is the consistency? Where is the policing?
Where's the power? Where's the rule maker? Maybe I'm old-fashioned. Pete and I will cut the same cloth, but when I was growing up, James, you were scared of the police. You didn't want your collar felt. Now you can stand there and have to me, the whole thing's changed.
This man doesn't want to be scared of the police either.
No, and look, if you
Gideon Falter shouldn't be fearful of the police.
If you were being generous, and I'm not in the mood to be generous to the Met, if I'm honest, but if you were being generous to the Met, you'd say their role is to be to keep the peace, and that's what they're trying to do. But to tell a man that he looks openly Jewish, and therefore that is some kind of aggravation when he's just trying to walk past a pro-Palestinian march, is disgraceful. I mean, whether Sir Mark Rowley should resign, to be honest, I'm not quite sure what that would achieve. We've had a lot of change in leadership of the Met. Whoever it is, someone needs to just get a grip of it. I'm not sure a change in leadership again is going to actually achieve anything.
But it's interesting, isn't it? It's about it's the old adage: if you're in charge of something, then you're responsible for the output. So
do you think? I understand what you said earlier, Peter. I just want to bring that back. You said about if Mark Rowley was to be replaced by somebody else who, and you used the word woke, but of course to be woke is to be aware of social justice, to back certain things in terms of diversity, equality, inclusion training, which obviously I would argue that the Metropolitan Police probably need more of in terms of anti-Semitism.
Yes, but according to the Oxford English Dictionary, its latest description of woke, it also includes a pernicious element, which is intolerant of the views of others. So let's have some balance there.
That's the word, isn't it? Balance.
So Sir Mark Rowley clearly has not shown enough resolve, and that is partly borne out of the fact that he probably knows his police service, if push came to shove, are incapable of quelling or dealing with any large-scale disturbance. Same as the reasons why the drug runners run prisons, because the prison service know they couldn't deal with outbreaks of violence and riots and the such like. So this is the criminal justice system in 2024, which is dominated by mob rule.
It's really interesting. We're going to move on. Pete, thank you for now. Stay there, though. We'll have you. Other stuff over the weekend. In fact, you can have an opinion. Mark Menzies. Can we please talk about Mark Menzies? This is the man who decided to phone up a 78-year-old worker in the constituency at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, I need £6,500. I'm being held hostage by some bad people. We'll do front page in a bit, so I'm cracking on with this. I'm far too obsessed with Mark Menzies. I mean, really, he's now decided that he had the whip suspended, which I should think was quite depressing for him. Never mind. Now he's quit the Tory party and he's not standing. What a shock that is.
Least surprising news ever. Mark Menzies announces he's standing down as a Conservative MP. I think what's quite interesting is that he's not actually standing down immediately, which means there's not going to be another by-election, which Rishi Sunak probably breathes a massive sigh of relief because he doesn't want another by-election. But yes, I mean, clearly Mark Menzies has some very serious questions to answer. Of course, he disputes the allegations, but they're very serious allegations, and it's not surprising at all that he's decided to stand down.
And the interesting thing was, you said this last week, in 2014, he was on the front of the Sunday newspapers with Rent Boys and cocaine, and the constituencies voted him back in 2015. He's gone now.
It's not his first scandal, is it, Claire?
It's not his
I love
scandal.
the way you put that.
And it was one of those sort of really badly kept secrets in Parliament that he had a little bit of local difficulty, and we all knew about it. And that's the sad fact, is that it brings everybody else into disrepute. But what I find quite astounding is Conservative Central Office have now gone slopey-shouldered and said they can't do anything because this was
slopey-shouldered, is that a political term?
Yeah, it is. It's a technical term.
Yeah.
Because they can't do anything. It's not public money. This is donors' money, so they don't feel that they need to wade into this. But they've had 3.5 months to make that decision. So I think this has all gone on for far too long. The chairman's got some really serious questions to ask. But again, it is the least surprising thing that's happened on the Fylde coast this weekend.
I'm desperate to do this because I want Peter, if it's all right, to get involved. 1 in 8... See, these two don't marry up to me. Tories no longer a patriotic party, says Sir Keir Starmer, writing in the Sunday Telegraph, and yet a poll today, 1 in 8 Labour voters think the St George's Cross is racist and divisive. Talk to me, people.
Well, look, I mean, Labour...
Racist and divisive.
It's really interesting. If you look at the leaflets that Keir Starmer is sending out currently, if you look at a Labour leaflet, it's got the Union Jack on. So they are trying to lean into this sense that they're not Jeremy Corbyn's party anymore, they're a patriotic party, you can love your country and vote Labour. But clearly there are some Labour voters who are, you know, woke or whatever, and they have an issue with the St George's Cross.
Why?
I mean, I never understand this, to be honest. You know, you can be progressive and patriotic at the same time. Yeah. And there is a progressive case to reclaim the flag and to be patriotic. You look at the way, for example, that the England football team actually now, you know, stand in many respects as quite a progressive, patriotic force, and we can all get behind them and look at what, you know, Gareth Southgate's been doing. There is a progressive case made for patriotism. Frankly, is the St George's Cross racist? Of course not. And it's disgraceful when people accuse it of being somehow racist or being triggering in some way.
Of course it is a symbol, and it absolutely depends on who is using that symbol. And so perhaps for 1 in 8 Labour voters, they view the the St George's Cross often with people who have got bad motives.
Well, which is again a reason why you have to reclaim the flag. And if you just say, well, fine, the EDL can have it, then what a cop-out. You're just giving up, you know?
Yeah.
Completely agree. Pete?
Totally agree with you.
I think there's going to be a huge meltdown this week from a lot of Labour supporters, isn't there? Because it's going to be St George's Day.
That's Tuesday.
Tomorrow.
So imagine them all stressing out over that, bless them. Maybe they'll work from home.
Wow. The thing that annoys me is, this won't come out well, but seemingly in England we're not allowed to be patriotic anymore. It seems to be that flag is criticised, and yet the Scottish are proud Scots, and the Welsh are proud Welsh, and the Irish are proud Welsh, and it annoys me, Claire, because it gets hijacked, doesn't it? I think James is right. What's wrong with the St George's flag? Why does that have to symbolise everything that's wrong about this country? But they don't look at flags of other countries.
Only 1 in 8. I just want to say, just for balance, only 1 in 8 people think this. There are 7 in 8 who don't think this.
They're
about
irrelevant, the 90%,
Nicola.
Right? How many do that? Be 12.5%. And also, very quickly, they're shouting in my ear. Angela Rayner, she says I've been going on about this, which is why it won't go away. But honestly, if you're standing for public office, right, you're going to be scrutinised. I don't disagree with that. I've got this. No, we were talking earlier. So over the weekend, I read that the chairman of the local Labour Party that she went as candidate resigned in disgust because she started campaigning too early and used their facilities. A neighbour, who'd hardly be a Tory voter, went, she's a lying cow, she is. What's going on here, Claire? Because it's not going away, is it?
No, it's not going away, and it's always the cover-up that gets people in the end.
Just admit it.
When you find out that there was an incident with a broken window in that property and Angela Rayner wrote as the landlady of the property, then I think she gets herself into even more trouble. So just fess up to this one, just be honest, open and transparent, pay the money that's owed, we can all move on.
Peter, are there difficulties in a case like this for such public figures? I'm not just talking celebrities, but like political public figures to be investigated by the police, obviously in Greater Manchester. What's your experience of that like, having to interview or investigate someone like Angela Rayner?
It may come as no surprise to you to know that I've got in trouble a few times in my life.
No way.
Yeah, I have, funnily enough. Nothing major, but, you know, a few spots of bother now and again.
That before you became a cop, but during or after?
All of the above.
Yeah, I knew he was going to say that.
And I tend to find that when I've got in trouble, it's been the lies that have got me in trouble. It's never been the truth. And if only politicians could actually grasp that very simple nettle.
It's true.
That if you tell the truth throughout, you're not going to get in bother.
What is the fear? This is what I was saying last week. I actually think it's probably not... Hear me out, because Hugo Rifkin was going, it's not as much... I don't know about the money. We're talking about you're standing for public office, you're going to be scrutinised. I've been saying this. View from the cheap seats, Ange. I think she's a breath of fresh air. I think 6 weeks ago she should have gone, listen, I made a mistake. But all of this and all of this and all of this, and the right-wing press ain't going to... Because they haven't got a lot to go on. They're not going to leave her alone.
But my question to Peter, like, who would have reported this? Will the police in Greater Manchester, will they have to think about what's been said in the papers, you know, I expect some individual would have had to have come to them to say, you must investigate Angela Rayner. And then there are other concerns over showing particular biases, the fact that it was over 10 years ago. There's a lot for the police to actually consider on this, isn't there?
Yeah, without a doubt. If there's been a specific allegation of crime made by an individual member of the public or whosoever that is, then, of course, the police are duty-bound to investigate that.
And do they keep it private at that moment, whether it's a public figure or anybody else, while they're investigating or not?
Well, unfortunately, we've seen huge inconsistencies with the police release of information when they do investigations over the years, and that's often got police officers into very hot water. You would like to think that any such investigation will be conducted behind closed doors, that there won't be leaking, there won't be spinning, there won't be people trying to, for their own benefit, let out snippets of information, and that when that thorough, prompt and professional investigation is done, any conclusions then, and only then, will be made public.
I'm not going to stick up for Angela Rayner, but I've made this point quite a lot to you as well about being in the public eye. You can have an accusation made against you which should be completely false, and your name's out there, and the person that made that, even if it turns out to be a lie, is not. I've always thought that's an appalling part of our legal system. I really do.
Yes, there is a...
You are judged simply because you're in the public eye before any semblance of truth comes out.
Yeah, who should be allowed anonymity is an ongoing discussion within the criminal justice system. And in fact, the Times newspaper today have launched that they're having a year-long investigation commission into the criminal justice system. So it'll be very interesting to see what their kind of findings are. Because at the end of the day, in so many aspects, from the front line of policing right through to probation, so through the CPS to prisons, et al., the criminal justice system is in absolute crisis.
What's the fix for it, Peter?
Well, some will say money, and that is an element, but it's not only that. Sure. It really needs a grasp, and I think what we need is that so many people in public service these days are in it for what they can get out of it, rather than being in it for what they can give, what they can offer.
But then think of all the abuse they get from people nowadays with the advent of social media and everything. Why does anybody bother, to be perfectly honest? Can I just ask you all separately, does this get Angela Rayner in the end, do you think, Claire Pearsall?
Yes, I think it does. It's always the cover-up.
I genuinely do.
I really do. And it'll be a shame because we need more strong women like that.
I actually think she's a breath of fresh air, but I cannot... I've said this all week, again, other people didn't believe me. I think this suits Sir Keir Starmer down to the bleeding ground, James.
And I think Labour have made a mistake because there is an instinct, and I understand it up to a point, to go, this has come from a hostile biography by Tory peer Lord Ashcroft, it's being peddled by the right-wing press, therefore it's just a smear. Actually, that's the wrong way of approaching it. Deal with the substance of the allegations. Had they done that in the outset, and if Angela Rayner had gone, you know what, if I owe some money, I'll pay it, I'll be transparent, this would have gone away. But that defensiveness may do for her in the end.
And what I said, Pete, is that actually, to be fair, when you look at it, however big or small that issue, when you run for office, and the light is going to be shone, it's going to be shone on Keir Starmer and her and the whole of that front bench. And I suspect that when Labour win, because I think they will, within 12 months we'll be sitting in places like this doing exactly the same thing about the Labour Party, who are taking this, or they shouldn't have done that, or they're sleeping with this person or being caught with whatever. I was nearly said a rent boy then, but you know what I mean. Especially
when it is elected public office. That's the real important factor here. And I concur entirely with what's being said on the panel here, to a large degree, that if you are upfront, if you are honest and open, we live in 2024 in a society and an establishment that is far more forgiving than it was 40, 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
And far more understanding that we're all human, we've all got frailties and we've all got flaws.
Right, so bearing that in mind, did you enjoy this morning?
I did, thank you very much.
Is that the truth or is that a lie?
I thoroughly enjoyed it, thank you.
You're a very kind man. I'm just checking, because I don't...
Well, we're forgiving either way.
We're very forgiving.
Thank you so much to our panel this morning. James Hanson from Times Radio, former Home Office advisor Claire Pearsall and former Met Detective Peter Blexley. Thank you all.